Hello, everyone. This is Angie here on the RTV radio show. We have another impactful conversation. I'm starting to love the panel discussion, so I cannot wait to introduce our guest for this evening. I do want to say that we had a dynamic discussion last week. We want to keep that going again with that whole panel discussion. I love when everyone just kind of has information. So I hope you all are looking at those candidates. And we are going to be launching some candidate discussions and forums and some conversations. But right now, we have if anyone saw my post, we actually have a state of emergency, which just came on our post. But a state of emergency, we all know that lately we've been hearing about the increased violence or incidents at Baltimore City Schools, and we wanted to talk about that. We wanted to actually be able to have a community conversation, right? And we actually put a post out where we were talking about just the violence and the incidents that happened at Mervo. And as we began talking, we saw that other schools, Stadium School, Patterson, Carver. So we want this to be just city schools in general and how and what is needed to help our schools and our students feel safer. I have on today the pleasure of having two special guests on here to join in this panel discussion. We actually have Mr. Clyde Boatwright. He is actually the CEO at the Maryland State FOP. Hope I'm saying all this is right. I'm going off his page. And the police sergeant and FOB president at City Schools. So thank you, Clyde, for being on here as our guest on this evening. We also have Mr. Harry Gray. He is actually the PTSA president over at Mervo. So that'll be a good person to have on as well for the incidents that happened in that particular school. And then just having Clyde on in general for city schools is going to be very helpful. We also, in our post, we had some conversations that was going on. So we're going to hopefully bring in that information as well. Before I dive in, let me just read. Hopefully you all saw the post, but if you didn't, I want to just say that some students, some parents, some community advocates, they had different takes on it. But I wanted to read a couple. Some were just saying that as far as do we need school police? Do we need added security? Is it just isolated? Is it ongoing? Has it just been off the chain the entire year? Like we just wanted to get a feel for everything, the pulse of it. And so some are just saying that how students don't feel safe to come back. One listener had actually said that her nephew is now going back to remote learning. Some are just afraid. Some are bringing weapons in because of maybe outside or just things that are going on. Some have brought in concerns about how they've been fighting against school police in, but how come we can't have both? Added resources, more counselors, and more school police. And one was just completely disfavorable for having it and said we just need counselors and not cops. This is what we're going to talk about today, and we hope that you all join in the discussion. But I guess I want to start it off by just saying, what is going on in Baltimore City Schools? What do you think is the increase or the reason for the increase in violence? And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Clyde Boatwright, because I think just from him working in the school, city schools, he has some expertise there. So what is your take on why?
So the why that we are seeing across the board is real simple. Kids go to school, which young people, students go to school to learn the ABCs, but the ABCs of life are now not being addressed as it relates to safety, and that's accountability, understanding boundaries, and consequences. So if we can get back to um, letting our young people understand that you need to be accountable for every action. You need to understand that you can't just violate people's space or violate a person's ability to move freely, to interrupt people and assault people. And they need to understand that along with accountability, there has to be some sort of consequence. to prevent that type of behavior from happening again. So I don't want this to seem like that our schools are completely out of control, but there are some issues citywide regarding discipline, and there is a direct need for us to continue to have these kind of conversations because we're not seeing a change in the behavior from our young people.
Now, I'm not sure if Mr. Gray is on. I don't see him on the screen. I know he's having some technical difficulties. But I was just going to ask about, one listener actually on the post had mentioned about um, we as a community. Basically, she was saying we as a community need to make sure that the district, just kind of push them in changing the code of conduct. I think that's a big factor. One of the things that Clyde is speaking on, that consequence, that accountability, the softening of the rules here. Someone could do one thing and then you see them in the school the next day. It also is going to bring me back to well, not bring me back, but just to discuss, I want to actually. So here it is. I got like multiple screens here. I'm getting there, like Diamond K. But here it is on my screen. I'm looking at the high schools, right? We all know that Maryville is one of the is the largest school in the district. So there are actually, according to the district's website, there are 1,706 students there, right? And as I looked at other schools, maybe the next one could be Poly with almost 1,600, City with almost 1,400 students. Some are the others like Dunbar, Emerson, Carver. They are at the almost 900 mark. I just want to just emphasize how we are. And I try to be so nice about this, but it feels as almost like we're cramming these students into these schools, right? And then there are going to be outbursts. There are going to be some incidents that's going on. I think, in the sense of that, I also want to just give kudos for just trying to keep the calmness with, with 1,700 students in a school. I also want to emphasize that all of the schools I just named, the City, the Poly, the Carver, the Dunbar, the Emerson, guess what, guys? They all have interest criterias. But recently, a few years ago, Mervo, they removed that interest criteria. So it is now a choice lottery. You ask, what is a choice lottery? So according to the website, it says that this school has no specific interest criteria or admission process. And we got to go deeper. That was something that the district actually, according to some laws and some things that occurred, but this school is now a choice lottery. I think that plays a part as well. So the overcrowdedness, the choice lottery, just not having the proper resources, and then having the larger school and not really having, again, the resources for it. So I just want to say that we are here today. If anyone's just logging in, I do believe it is a state of emergency. I do believe that we also need to make sure and certain that we understand that not even just with Mervo, the same day that we had these incidents with the stabbing and the arrest, around the corner on 33rd was a whole entire fight from the stadium school students. That's middle. So we have this thing is bigger. And across town in Patterson had an incident where a teacher was, harmed, trying to either break up a fight or just got involved in it. Not got involved, but just being a part of trying to make sure a student is not harmed. So, the added resources is definitely needed. And so I just wanted to just emphasize those facts there. Did Mr. Harry Gray come on? Because I wanted to talk about in the article from the Channel 2 News. The title says a lot of students here don't feel safe. And then parents are reflecting on after their son was stabbed. The parents said emotions running rampant. There are students that are not feeling safe. And some are just bringing in weapons because they want to make sure they can protect themselves. And it also said, and I think Clyde can speak on this, it also says, I don't know if it's the entire school year or this particular year, you can speak on that, but it also says that 14 loaded guns have been confiscated from Baltimore City Schools. Can you emphasize on that? I don't want to say how are they getting in because you might not know, but 14 is a lot, and that you all have just confiscated. We're not even talking about what you didn't see yet.
Yeah, so we get into a unique area where in our district we're seeing the increase in firearm loaded possession, loaded firearm possession. Um, there was a time in Baltimore City Public Schools where a BB gun found in a school was news, or a knife found in a school was news. Now, we're finding loaded firearms with extended magazines, 30-round clips. We've got two of them this year.
Ooh.
We've got three or four of those guns that we recovered are ghost guns, which are not traceable. These are guns that were manufactured with a digital printer. And it's concerning that these firearms are finding themselves in the hands of young people. And so, um, with our police officers that are school based, that are not armed during the day, to still have to still be charged with the responsibility of disarming and recovering these firearms, it's really a concern. I know we had this discussion many years ago.
Yes.
At least 6 years ago, when we started discussing about why our police officers should or should not be armed. Um, the powers that be made a determination to go away from having officers armed during the school day. Then we had a shooting at Douglas High School. When we had a student shot this year at Dunbar High School a few weeks ago. So we're seeing these firearms not only being brought to school, but actually being used. And it's my goal to make sure that our young people could get to school safely and get home safely. But it's also, as the union president, it's my responsibility to speak out on these issues to make sure that our members and our officers are safe as well.
Yes. Now we already know Baltimore City police in general has a shortage. How does that look as far as school police? Is there enough, across the board?
No. So I'll give you some numbers.
Yeah.
Uh, let's go back to 2016. We had 142 police officers with the Baltimore City school system. Now we're hovering in the high 70s, low 80s, depending upon, so we have half the staff that we had 6 years ago. And that's because of a number of budget cuts. But I will say this, there are some people and residents that have had some issues with our leadership within the school system. But I'm happy to say publicly we don't have that same issue. Meaning the CEO's office, Dr. Santalisa's office, she's been great to school police, and her staff has been great to us. So we don't have the issues where there's a clash between labor and management. It's just that it's a scenario where, as you said in your lead-in, that I'm also the president of the Maryland State Fraternal Order Police, and I oversee an organization with 21,000 cops. And so statewide, we're seeing a shortage in policing. But it's all because we're picking from the same barrel for the qualified candidates.
Mhm.
So what we need to do at school police, because it's a specialized unit, it's a specialty to be a school police officer. We need to find a way to get these people in the door, get them properly trained, and keep them here. What we're seeing is our veteran police officers are going to other jurisdictions where they have less red tape and more benefits.
That makes sense. Like you just said, it's similar to what Baltimore City is dealing with as far as the police department in general. I'm also happy to hear, because we definitely don't want this to ever be a clash of anything, but we're going to speak facts and hold accountability. But I
Mhm.
love the fact that you did say that, it's not even with the CEO. Like, partnerships really matter, and I really want to say that and emphasize. I also, it's good to actually see or hear the data that the shortage, we just don't have enough, right? And so, just wanted to throw that out to everyone. And speaking of Dr. Santalisa's, I really believe that she's trying and doing her best, and that again, the partnerships certainly matter. Just a little plug. We are going to be having a community conversation with the CEO this Thursday at 6 p.m. So if anyone is tuning in right now, feel free to come on back on in. This will be hosted by NECO, Northeast Community Organizations, and it's going to go to all the schools within the catchment area, which Marvo is one, and there are various other schools. Hopefully, we can touch bases on this conversation. As well as other conversations when it comes to city schools. So I did want to say that as well. So yeah, we so let's just talk about if and I'm trying to say the nicest way to do it, but if we did not have school police, because someone had made a comment, and I really want to know, maybe someone on here is listening and can give me an alternative. But if we did not have school police, what will make you feel safe? Because for me, it's a safety mechanism, but I also know that it's the lack of trust, right? And so there's some hesitation. So it's sometimes a little beyond the budget. It could be that also they just don't trust the police. They don't trust things that are going on. But I just want to know, like, if we didn't, because there was one who said counselors, not cops, and that she was not in favor of having more police. I've also invited her on. Wish that she could have been here, but did not come on the show. But I do want to emphasize that she did say counselors, not cops. She does not favor having more police officers in schools would benefit from having more counselors and more alternatives. So anyone is on, or even Clyde can, put in what he think these alternatives. What would be an alternative to law enforcement that would make someone feel safer in the schools?
Yeah, I would like to put that to bed. We can walk and chew gum. We can do two things at one time. For anybody that suggests that Baltimore City should not have police officers protecting our precious jewels, our young people, you should want to know what their motives are. We're the only jurisdiction in the state of Maryland that does not allow police officers to be around our young people um, armed with all of the tools that are available to protect them. So there are motives behind this. There is a push for mental health, but I got news for people. Everybody that you encounter is not having a mental health episode, is not having a behavioral crisis. Some people are choosing to break the law, and that's adults and our young people. They're making that choice. And it has less to do with mental health and more about a decision that's being made. And so for those that intentionally try to harm people, which is, we have a lot of adults that do this. If they intentionally try to harm someone at one of our schools, you need a police officer with arrest powers that can take that person into custody and remove them from our community. That's just a fact. So I would like to get away from and abandon the idea that counselors would do something differently that police officers can do, because a counselor is not going to get in the middle of recovering any of these firearms that we recovered. The 14 firearms we got. Let me see a counselor sign. Show me a counselor that's signing up to do that. Show me a counselor that's signing up to run towards gunfire and deal with a lockdown situation with a double shooting out in front of their building, or a stabbing in the building. Show me a counselor that's ready to sign up to do that. The sad part about it, when we have, which we do a lot on a daily basis, our officers do a lot of mental health evaluation transports. The counselors that we have don't even want to ride in the car with the kids. So they get in their own personal car and they take these kids to the hospital to be evaluated. This is for lack of a better term, we've stopped the arrest, but let's be real. This is a issue relating to studying kids with their mental health. This is like a pilot program. So I think we need to get away from and abandon that notion about let's remove all the cops and put counselors in there, because counselors are not going to step in between a person with bad intentions and our young people.
Yeah, that's what so one of the comments was that we need both. We need more of both. And
Right. I
I
agree with that.
agree with that. I'm not against, school police. I make that very clear every time. I am aware that there has been some training. I would just say this really quickly is that I would like to hear more on the training that you all receive when it comes to mental health crises, because that's part of it. But some of the other is stemming from just some outside beef, some external situations, or just not having their own I would say like just resources in within the system or within a school where they can actually vent, to get this help, because we all need some support groups and some help. But what happens, as you stated, when they come in and they have this gun or this knife,
So
and
I'll give you some examples. If you
Mhm.
notice, out of the 14 gun arrests, there's not one allegation of excessive force by our police officers. We haven't had one in over 5 years. There has not been one shot fired by our police officers to recover these weapons because, one, we have relationships. We train regularly on mindfulness, on implicit bias, on cultural diversity, de-escalation, stress, childhood trauma. We train on all of this stuff routinely. And these are all different individual topics. And it's a requirement for our police officers. Again, I say it's a specialty. Anybody can learn to become a police officer, but it's a specialty to be a police officer in a school. It's no different if you use a medical professional. You can have a general practitioner, and then you can have a brain surgeon. In policing, we're the liking of a brain surgeon because of we specialize in dealing with adolescents and teen behavior.
I'm thankful to hear that. Diamond K, were you saying anything? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a big part of what happens in school is a reflection of, society, the community,
Yes.
and we really need to focus on the conflict resolution. And when folks are having a disagreement, how when are they escalating to a violent point? So some of that has to be worked on, and then I mean, you need both. You need folks to be able to reinforce some appropriate conflict resolution, and then but you also need officers there in case things go too far. What do we have in place to keep folks safe? And so I mean, I think we need more of both. And the you mentioned something about the amount of students in the schools.
Mhm.
um and I think that we yesteryear, it probably required less officers and less counselors. And when I was in school, we had both, but the counselors were kind of part-time, and we didn't have a lot of officers in school, but there was a police presence, and it was respected. But as time has gone on, I think that like you mentioned, the relationship with the police and the community has spilled over into the schools, and some students are looking at the school police as the people that they have this complicated relationship with in their community.
So you'll have some people that'll try to draw a parallel between what school police does in Baltimore City and what police officers in other jurisdictions around the country and their interactions. And so they'll see those topics and those headlines, and they'll try to say, well, that should be the way that things are done here in Baltimore. But just because it works in Cleveland doesn't mean it works in Baltimore. We have a unique and diverse community that has different needs than those of people in Detroit and other locations. So I caution people to not um, follow something that's attractive because they think it's the best option. When in fact our kids and our young people are screaming out for protection because they want to be in safe schools.
Is there I had a question. Is there some kind of data? I'm looking now on a school police site, but is there any kind of dashboard or data showing per incident? As you just well, as I read the 14 and how you elaborated, but is there anything on the website showing I'm sorry, the data or dashboard showing the incidents in city schools?
No, not that I know of.
Okay, is that something that you all would be willing to do? Because I think the transparency piece plays a big part. That's just the same like when we were talking about COVID. We want to know how many cases. I think it would be important to hear or see that not just when an incident happens. It shouldn't be an incident happened and now we knew that it was 14 and we didn't know before. So I would just like to, at least throw that out there. I think that makes a little more transparency piece. Just FYI from coming from me.
So I'll tell you this: every year, there's a requirement to report incidents to um, the Maryland Department of Education, and then they publish those statistics
Okay.
to include the arrest data. And look, I'll tell you, we've come a long way as a police department. With 10 years ago, I'll go back as far as, so the last year that we had real data was 2018, 2019, pre-COVID. So let's use 10 years before then. In 2008, we were arresting 1,000 people per year, 1,000 students citywide. And so that arrest data is I think in 2018, 2019, we were somewhere around 52. And then during the COVID months, we can't really quantify that. But I still, I think today we're still under 50 for this school year, whereas we're not arresting the large amounts of students, and we're finding alternatives to arrest. But then you still have people who will not just pull the veil off of their blatant bias and just say that they hate policing as an institution. They'll say, oh, well, the arrest numbers are too high. Well, we don't arrest people as much as we used to before. So now what's the issue? Well, we just don't believe cops need to be around schools. I mean, around school children. So we're peeling back the onion slowly to show people's actual bias towards law enforcement. And so I think the numbers should speak for themselves. We no longer have these mass arrests. And we're still doing an effective job by trying to provide safety for our students.
Now, I want to say with Harry just coming back in, I want to kind of give you opportunity. Again, Harry is the president over at Mervo PTSA. And I just want to give you the floor. Is there, I know you might have missed some of the things, but if we're just talking about in general, not just so much of a Mervo, but I know you're a parent. And again, you're the president over there. What do you think is needed to make our schools and our students feel safer? What do you need, as resources? Is it partnership? Again, is it resources? Is it more parent involvement? Is it getting the information out? So I'd like to hear from you as a parent and again, as the PTSA president.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Angie. I think we need all of the above what you said. We definitely need school police inside the schools. With the increase of violence among our youth and in the community, a lot of I think things that happen in the school kind of carries over from the community. Kids are doing on social media in the neighborhood, etc., and they bring it to the school. Teachers are not trained to de-escalate or break up fights. You sometimes in some instances you may ask a teacher that's in the 60s, 50s, 60 years old to try to break up a fight in the classroom or a big brawl. That's not what they're trained for. A lot of the teachers will probably shy away from that because if you handle a kid the wrong way, you may be looking for a lawsuit. You may be looking for another job. In my experience of 24 years of being in the school system, I believe kids have a better relationship with school police than they do some of the administrators in the schools. Sometimes just the pure presence of a school police officer can de-escalate a kid. That kid may talk to that school police officer before they talk to the teacher. And that could be because, the interaction that they have throughout the school building. It could have been an incident where that school police officer had to take the kid into his office and talk, and they built a rapport. I think we're needed especially with the times that we have today. And how can we make things safe? I think parents have to be more involved with their kids. They have to come into the schools. They have to come to back to school night, PTA nights, where they know exactly what's going on. We have a lot of kids going to certain schools that have disabilities, special ed disabilities, IEPs. And sometimes a teacher can read it, but they may not be able to handle a person. And sometimes certain things are outdated. Again, being at the middle school and then, the high school level, I see it at all aspects. We definitely on the middle school level, I think we struggle to really prepare the kids for high school. And when you're coming from maybe a specialized program and now you're going from middle school to high school, you're not used to that freedom. And the school is not prepared for it. So, you definitely have some of the things that's going on, but I really truly believe at this day and age right now, especially after COVID, we have to work on the kids' social skills. I think we lost a lot of it through COVID. They don't know how to de-escalate themselves. They don't know how to talk the problems out. They just feel like, right now, I got so much anger and so much things pent up. I just want to fight. And teachers are at a point where they're kind of fed up, so they don't want to get involved. So the school police are there to help, support, de-escalate, be the go-between, between staff and students. But I also believe some schools have hall monitors. I do believe that they need all of the training that they can get, because sometimes they don't know how to de-escalate a kid. They can escalate a kid from 5 to 9 in about 30 seconds because they're trying to demand certain things from the kid, and the kid is sitting there like, I want to talk to you. So as an adult, they're saying, no, you're going to talk to me right now. Sometimes the adult has to know when to walk away and let another adult step up and handle a situation.
Thank you for sharing that. Diamond Caden came off of mute. You have something to say on that?
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I agree with everything that he said, and also I think that every position needs a little bit more understanding of somebody else's role in this. I think that you know, parents, and a lot of times they're not going to want to hear it, but yes, parents do need to step up more. I think that as time has gone on, a lot of parents, of course, not all parents, but a lot of parents have taken a more of a hands-off approach when they're in school and they're not involved as much as they should be. So we have that, they have that part, and everybody just needs the parents need to understand the difficult job that the teachers are in, and the difficult job that every adult in that school is in. And I think they just kind of like, that's their job. They need to do their job. And they just kind of, when you over there, I need to be working on something else. And they need to be more involved, because ultimately the parent has to really set the tone for how their child is going to behave when in the school. And so, but I also think that, and I understand where it comes from, but Mr. Boatwright, like when you talk about the relationship, I think that because it has been so difficult, like your posture it's not, it's defensive and offensive. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, but I understand why it's like that, and I just think that if it's easy for me to say this, but it's just if everybody, civilians and officers, if we could just try to understand the other person's position, I think that we could meet each other better. But it's just like everybody is, taking their position and trying to hold their ground. And I think all we're getting is more, just more friction.
Yeah, and I would like to respond to that. And I think Coach makes a great point. I think Brother Diamond K makes a good point. Here's the reality. There are 6 different social drivers of community. And I one of my mentors is the chief of police down in Annapolis, and he brought this to my attention, and I really want to bring this forward. Strong education system, strong families, and a strong religious base are 3. If you have those 3, there's no need for the other 3, which is cops, courts, and corrections. And so if you build on strong families, you build on a strong education system, and you build on a strong faith-based system, then you have the working tools to become a better citizen. And so if we can harp on that, if we can get back to that in educating our young people, then we'll start to see people that will have remorse. We will start to see people that don't have the killer instinct. Because right now, I'm watching, I watched a video today of something that happened in Northwest Baltimore where a kid was riding a dirt bike. They took the dirt bike from him. The father tries to retrieve the dirt bike by chasing the person down in his pickup truck. And then when the father get out to try to retrieve the dirt bike, they started shooting at the dad, the father. This happened in Northwest Baltimore, on Park Heights Avenue. And so you are wrong for taking someone's belongings, and when they come to get it back, you want to shoot and kill a guy over that. Now, thankfully, the father wasn't hit and killed, but where are we with our morals that we can take something from somebody, and when they try to take it back, you try to kill that person for that?
Yeah, so I am over here looking at these comments too. I'm gonna read the one that's up. Irene said, "Until it is mandatory for parents to participate in their children's education and children are socialized before academics, you will continue to get the same." There's also another comment that stood out. Deborah says that because I love our listeners being so interactive. Deborah said, "When I was a student at Mervo years ago," oh, there it goes. Thank you, Domkin. "When I was a student at Mervo years ago, the officers did not only protect us, they gained a relationship and a reputation to make sure we stayed on track." I wanted to say that because we just attended a meeting at Mervo, because some may know or may not know, Mervo is actually we're in a principal selection process right now. Which is another problem because there's some stabilities in our schools and leaderships and retention, as you just said about retaining some of these officers is the same as retaining leadership in our schools. But one of the things that I saw is how the respect was for one of the school police officers that was there. It wasn't an intimidation from the students. They were embracing him. So relationships matter, partnerships matter. And I wanted to actually say that because, I mean, I didn't do a survey. I'm just telling you what I observed today and what I observed when I go into the schools. I don't see the intimidation or the lack of not wanting that security from our students and, our staff. And so this is a question I want to kind of say, and it's probably going to open up a can of worms. But I'm curious because it was a question, and I'm going to ask the question the person had. Monty says, "If a student is armed and the police is not, what happens at that point?" And I'm going to take it even further. Some schools have metal detectors. What happens if someone goes through and it buzzes and they have a weapon on? I think we need to have those discussions. It may not have to be today. Maybe Clyde is ready. He might be on it. But, I think people need to understand, I don't even know if people realize that some of these schools already have metal detective. There is one in Mervo. Harry can help me to know if it's fully activated or not. But then there was an incident. So with the metal detectives there, it still happened. So can we talk about that for a few minutes?
Mr. Gray, I'll defer to you. I'm ready. I know exactly where to go with this, but I'll defer to you.
I'm just curious. I'm just saying. Maybe
I will ask for your help. I'll support right on this. The metal detectors are working. I was up there actually for career day a few weeks ago. But one of the things that I did see, they're not doing the proper searches. So the metal detectors, they're going off, but I don't think the people that are there are actually trained on what to look for, what to announce. And when that alarm goes off, instead of saying, okay, I looked through your bag, it's nothing in the bag, go ahead and keep going. We're good. I think it has to be, wait a minute, we now have to take the wands. We got to wand you down. We got to make sure that definitely nothing's on you. And I know these kids now, for them, it becomes a hassle, but they have to be taught and I guess educated that, hey, look, we have issues that's going on, not just, at your school, but all around Baltimore City. We're trying to make sure you're safe. So it is a process, it's a procedure. But I just think the people that are doing it have to be trained in what to listen for, what to look for, and kind of how to definitely do it. And that's why that may be one of the issues. Of course, the other issue is, there's so many doors in certain schools and you can't lock them. So a kid can wait on the other side of a door. Other kid goes in, he's clean, and he goes open the door, and that kid comes into the building, but he has the weapon. So sometimes it comes down to not having enough staff to monitor all the doors, or doors doesn't have an alarm system. So it's a few things that definitely need to be addressed. But I think one of the major things is training the people to really search the kids and know what to look for when they're doing the searches.
Now Clyde is over there smiling. He's like ready. He's ready.
No,
Go
no,
ahead,
he was
Clyde.
hitting the nail on the head, right? So, we got to get away from the notion that people believe that schools should not look like prisons, quote unquote. And I totally agree with that. Schools should be a safe space. I lost the camera there when we went to the full screen. I don't know if that's my camera.
You're still on.
Okay. Yeah, so schools should not look like prisons, and I totally agree with that. And I think our officers would say that. But I want to give you an example. If you take a smartphone and you put it in the hands of a 2-year-old, a 2-year-old will be able to navigate. And I've done this with both of my grandkids. They can navigate that smartphone and they can go to YouTube and look for exactly what they want. They know how to move and navigate the phone. What's the same thing with our young people? They know how to navigate these systems. What do you think a 16, 17-year-old is going to do? They're going to see how the system works, and then they're going to find flaws in the system. And there's a false sense of security that metal detectors and security cameras make places safe. I don't know where this notion came from that people don't want to get captured on camera doing crimes. They don't care. And I'm here to tell people don't care. There's going to be a very clear video of the incident. The metal detector is going to beep when you bring the gun through there. But unless you have someone to hold them accountable on the other end, and that's stopping a person from doing harm, you're basically inviting failure. And again, I'll use the example. I was assigned to my alma mater, Carver High School, where I played sports there as a student. I went back to be the coach there, and in a number of different sports. But at Carver High Schools, there's 8, and where I was a school police officer there for a number of years, there are 18 different entrances throughout that building. 18. We can't police all 18 doors for the length of time that school is in session. So these young people will leave out and go to the store. They'll go. And so I had an issue, and I think this is for this conversation. I had an issue in the community. Thankfully, I grew up in that neighborhood. But we had kids back in the day that were getting robbed for the Nextel phones, the two-way phones. They would leave out to go to the carryout, and on their way back from the carryout, people would rob them of their phones. And so we had to think of something that was non-conventional to try to stop that. And it was to just open up our little stores and things like that in the school so the kids didn't have to leave the building to subject themselves to being robbed. Then the robbery stopped. And so schools have to be creative to keep the young people in the building. And when getting them in the building, we have to make sure that you monitor the doors and exits, you monitor people coming in and going out. But like Mr. Gray said earlier, you can't monitor every location. It's just impossible.
I want to, there's a comment that we are in different times. We have to rebuild what is broken. We need youth in these conversations. I'm definitely for having our youth at the table. In fact, we've had them come on before. So I would love to, even come back as a part two with them, with the youth at the table. What I don't want is this to be a planned. I want it to be solely like a diverse conversation. And so I just actually participated in one that was very much one sided. And I don't want that because that was someone who actually spearheaded to make it look like one sided. And if anyone knows me, I like fair conversations. So if we can get some who I know is favorable and not favorable, I would like to have that at the conversation at this panel discussion, to have fair conversations to say what is needed, and even if you don't want police, what makes you not want police, what are alternatives, or why do you love them? You either hate them, you love them, or you just feel like we could do better, we could do differently. So I just wanted to just say that because I don't want anyone to ever think that I'm even having a personal agenda. I don't. I just want to make sure that we have very fair conversations. I just participated in one last week and it was not fair at all, and unfortunately I felt some way. But then here's another comment. Someone said, Sansaray said, I feel that unsealed trauma breeds violence. Not only are we seeing it in our schools, we're seeing it in our streets. We have over 100 homicides right now. We're getting women being murdered. We have children being murdered. We have men being murdered. So you're right. This is a different time on so many levels. I know we're coming to a close. We got a few minutes, but I want to say this. I hear people say it's not the same. It's not the same. We all know it's not the same. I don't feel the same like I felt 10 years ago. I don't feel the same like I felt 20 and 30 years ago. So it is not the same. We do need to change. We do need to kind of, kind of go with the changes, or move with the changes, should I say. And so I just want to say that, I came across some posters that were like, oh my gosh, Mervo. And I got to say Mervo because, my alma mater. But they say, hell, Mervo, it's not the same, when I was going there. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, is this, you just saying it? Or you just talking? And so that's why I want to Harry here, because not only are we asking parents to be there, we're asking the community to be there. We're asking the alumni to be there. A couple of weeks ago, we just did a whole thing about Mervo and how the successes they're doing. That doesn't mean that after you graduate, you can't come back and you can't invest in the school. So this is our responsibility as a community, as alumni, as parents, as guardians, as community leaders. So, I'm just asking everyone to step up. If you can come to a meeting, if you can, volunteer at a school, whatever it may be, just try to do your part as well instead of pointing a finger. I don't want to say I don't like the FOP or the police or the mayor's doing this. Like, I'm just saying all the things I've been hearing, we got to let that part go and say, what are we doing as a community? What can we do to make them better? Because at these schools, I have family, I have friends, and that's why I'm so involved. I'm on board speaking for, communities. I will be over at Harry Gray's meeting. I want him to speak on as well. He is actually having a meeting on Wednesday. I'd like for him to talk about where he's asking the community to come in, because there has been increased violence and incidents at Mervo. And we want to see, are you going to come up? Are you going to show up? Are you going to be, he's asking for help, or are we going to help him? Or are we just going to keep posting and saying what it is not the same, or saying, I ain't going to preach today, but I'm just saying, I want people to know that it's taking more. I don't want this conversation because I felt like I was going to get some likes on here. I really am asking you all to show up to the community conversation with the CEO. Let her know how you feel. She's going to be there Thursday talking to me. So this Thursday, 6:00, make sure you come out. This Wednesday, Harry, can I turn this over to you? What are you asking for? When is the meeting? What is needed? Let's talk about that real quick. Gotta go off of mute. Off of mute. Real quick.
Okay. All right. Wednesday, we are having a PTSA meeting where we're definitely trying to get parents, teachers, students, alumni involved, to send the word out that, hey, Mervo does need some help in certain areas, but we're not. Mervo is not a bad school. We have no more issues than anybody else. So we definitely asking the community to come out to get a better understanding of what's going on and what they can do to help as well.
Thank you. So this Wednesday at 6, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, at Mervo, yes.
I'll make sure I share that again. This Wednesday at 6, and then Thursday online at 6 will be a community conversation with Dr. Santelises. Show up. Show up with me, guys. Let her know that we're not against her, like Clyde said. We're good partners, but it's good to have these conversations so you can hear all sides of it, all areas. Clyde may not know what the parent may feel, and the parent may not feel what the police feel. Right? That's why we need to be here, and that's why we need to have this platform. I just wanted to say this also. Big shout out to Diamond K. We want to make sure that we always support our media. People say, oh, Fox 45, oh, Channel 2, oh, this, oh, that. Let me just say Channel 2 was the one who had a great article that was put out, and I felt like it was very diverse, and it was very right on track. But anyway, I just want to say big shout out to On Fire Television with Diamond K as our producer. Big shout out to the RTV Radio Show as we are coming back and we are intensifying with great subjects such as this. Thank you again for Clyde Boatwright, a good friend of mine. Doesn't mean I won't hold him accountable. He know him and I will go, not say we're gonna go at it, but we may not agree on everything. But I appreciate that he comes, he's a part, and he's a partner and a friend. So thank you. And Harry Gray, thank you so much. These were two that I asked at the last minute and they showed up, and I really appreciate it. So this was not a planned thing. I've actually been going through a lot of my grandfather's death and so forth. So I put the information out. You guys showed up and you guys have been on this comments. I have a lot that I can read off of here, but I won't. But it shows the interaction. It shows the diversity. And I just wanted to say thank you for utilizing this platform to make sure that we get the correct messaging out and that we are all at the table. Does anyone have anything lasting to say? Clyde, I know you always have a lot to say. Yeah. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I want people, I want the message to go out that the FOP, when you see those letters, don't think enemy. The FOP's responsibility and our primary objective is to fight for pay, benefits, and working conditions for police officers. That's it. If anyone tells you anything different, then they're not telling you the full truth. To say that we get off bad police officers is wrong. There was not one dime spent on those criminals from the Gun Trace Task Force. We only ensure that due process is done. If police chiefs or commissioners or whoever, sheriffs, want to fire bad cops, they can do so as long as they do it the right way under law. That's our role.
I thank you for saying that also, because We Own This City premieres tonight. It's either 8 or 9. I don't know.
It's 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Oh, look, he ready. He about to take his notes. But no, I was just going to say that We Own This City is on. That's a whole nother conversation, because I'm with you. It's very hard to really trust police, and there's a lack of trusting here and there. And then you hear all these corruptions. So it makes it hard. It makes it difficult. Every time I hear another incident, I'm like, oh my gosh, because you're like, we're trying to do some steps forward and always kind of going back sometimes. So I wanted to just say, I'll put that out that We Own the City premieres tonight at 9 o'clock, HBO Max. I don't know what's going to go on with it, but I will be tuned in. I was asked to be a part of it, but I was like, no, I'm just tired of showing that part of our city. But please, tune in to HBO Max at 9 o'clock for We Own This City will premiere. And Don McKay, you have anything?
I just want to thank everybody for coming on and having these are tough conversations to have. And but we have to continue to have them, you know what I mean? And it is going to be an ongoing thing, and we just trying to strive to make it better and better as far as the relationships and just how people conduct themselves young people and adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also want to say, we are going to probably more than likely hold a part two for this conversation. Clyde, you're more than welcome to, come back. But I also want to make sure that I invite our youth. So if there are any youth out there that would like to be a part of this panel, we would love to have you. So that's our invitation. If you know someone that would be great in doing that, just recommend them to us to be on our show. So again, as Diamond K said, this is never like easy conversations. I don't want to piss anyone off, but I also don't want to not do my job and hold an accountability or to have these hard conversations. So I just wanted to throw that out, that we need to have it, and we need to hold these good conversations, because this is the reason why I might get an invitation, with the Dr. Santelices or any other entities or city or state agencies, because we're being fair about it, but we're also holding them accountable. So we want to make sure that some of the things that came out of today, we'll make sure we share it with her on Thursday. But also, again, a community conversation with the CEO is this Thursday at 6:00. You can go to my page for the actual link. And
We're
then
going to stream it.
say it again.
That's how I'm going to stream it.
Oh, good. And then Wednesday, if anyone is in the Merville community, rather school, student, staff, community member, alumni, please make sure you attend that meeting to support them and their community. And with that being said, we are here at the end. It is so hard to say goodbye. If I could sing, I would say that, but I won't. And so I thank you all. I feel it feels good to be back. It hasn't been that long, but I feel like I'm getting back to it. And so I appreciate you all tuning in. As I stated, next time we are looking forward to having some candidates on and some other community issues. So whatever's happening, you can see that RTV will be right there at the forefront, bringing it right to the community. So thank you all for tuning it in. Big shout out to Brother Nance. He wasn't here. He had me do it by myself, but not really. My brother Diamond K was here. But thank you all for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you all next Monday, 7 p.m. on the RTV Radio Show.